Hocus Pocus. In the year 1693, in the quiet and picturesque town of Salem, nestled amidst the rugged shores of Massachusetts, there existed a trio of formidable and darkly mystical sisters whose very name struck fear into the hearts of the townsfolk. Winifred, the eldest and undoubtedly the most cunning of the three, bore the mantle of leadership. Her piercing gaze, adorned with sharp, calculating eyes, could see into the souls of those who dared cross her path. She was a master of the dark arts, a sorceress whose knowledge of spells and incantations knew no bounds. Sarah, the middle sister, was the embodiment of enchanting allure. With her golden hair cascading down like sun-kissed silk, and her voice that held the power to entrance any man who heard it, she was a siren of the supernatural. Her beguiling charms masked a heart as wicked as any to ever grace this mortal realm. Then, there was Mary, the youngest and perhaps the most grotesque of them all. Her appearance was best described as grotesque, her demeanor docile and subservient. With a face twisted by warts and a rotund, misshapen figure, Mary often went unnoticed, a clever ruse that veiled her insidious power. She was able to communicate with the dead, an ability that became invaluable in the sisters' nefarious pursuits. But it was not their sinister reputations alone that marked the Sanderson sisters as legendary figures in Salem's dark history. Their malevolence extended far beyond simple notoriety, into realms of dark sorcery and unspeakable acts. They were not just witches, they were the epitome of evil. One fateful autumn night, the sisters hatched a diabolical scheme that would send chills down the spines of Salem's residents for centuries to come. The chosen victim was young Emily Binks, a child of no more than 8 years, whose innocence was matched only by her radiant beauty. The sisters believed that her life force, stolen through an unspeakable ritual, would grant them eternal youth and power beyond imagination. Thackeray Binks, a loving older brother, could not bear to see his sister suffer such a heinous fate. He tried valiantly to rescue her from the clutches of the wicked witches, but his efforts were in vain. In a twisted display of their dark magic, the Sanderson sisters cursed Thackeray, imprisoning his soul within the form of an immortal black cat. The townsfolk of Salem, however, were not blind to the evil that festered within their midst. They united against the sisters, who had cast their malevolent spells upon innocent children and grown alike. A heated and fearsome confrontation took place, culminating in the apprehension of the three witches. Their punishment was swift and grim, they were sentenced to hang for their wickedness. In the final, fateful moments before their execution, Winifred Sanderson, the mastermind behind their malevolence, whispered an incantation that would resonate through time. With an air of sinister finality, she cast a spell intended to ensure their return from the beyond. Her chilling words echoed in the crisp autumn night, as if etched in the very fabric of Salem's history. On All Hallows' Eve, when the moon is round, a virgin will light the black flame candle, and the sisters shall return from the dead. Thus, the stage was set, the curse cast, and the legacy of the Sanderson sisters eternally sealed in Salem's blood-stained history. On Halloween night, when a virgin would inadvertently light the black flame candle, the resurrected sisters would wreak havoc once more upon the unsuspecting world. The legend of the Sanderson sisters would live on, casting a long and dark shadow over the town of Salem, a shadow that even the passage of time could not erase. Chapter 1, New in Town. It was a chilly, overcast morning when the Dennison family pulled into the quaint, historic town of Salem. Their arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, but for the eldest son, Max Dennison, it felt more like a trip to the past, or perhaps a nightmare reincarnate. Max, a lanky teenager with disheveled brown hair and a permanent look of teenage skepticism etched upon his face, had been uprooted from his familiar life in sunny California. Now, he found himself in a town that seemed plucked straight from the annals of colonial history. As the Dennison family's station wagon rolled into the heart of Salem, Max couldn't help but feel like an unwitting time traveler, thrust into a world of witch trials and broomstick legends. His parents, oblivious to their son's apprehension, spoke excitedly about the charming and quaint qualities of their new home. Max's younger sister, Dani, was equally enthusiastic about their relocation. Her rosy cheeks and wide, innocent eyes glistened with the wonder of discovering a town that whispered with tales of magic and mystery. Max, on the other hand, regarded Salem with a furrowed brow. He had little patience for history, witches, and the seemingly endless number of haunted sites that peppered the town. In his mind, this place was a far cry from the sun-soaked beaches and carefree days of California. It was an ordeal that left him longing for the familiarity of his former life. Salem's streets were lined with colonial architecture, their quaint buildings steeped in history, and their brick walkways uneven from centuries of wear. As the Dennison family drove past Salem's landmarks, Max's parents pointed out museums, graveyards, and the infamous Witch Trials Memorial. Max couldn't suppress a scoff as his father recounted tales of accused witches and their tragic fate. However, it was an encounter with the intriguing Allison that would unknowingly set the wheels of fate into motion. While Dani chatted with their parents about their new school and the prospect of trick-or-treating, Max's disinterested gaze caught the attention of a striking girl with long, dark hair and an air of quiet intrigue. Allison, a local girl with a fascination for Salem's history, couldn't help but notice the newcomer's brooding disposition. The chance meeting at the edge of the town square felt almost serendipitous, as if it were the hand of fate guiding them together. New in town? Allison inquired with a friendly smile as she approached Max. Max, not in the mood for small talk and bracing himself for another round of touristy tales, replied, "Yeah, just moved here. Salem doesn't seem like the most exciting place." Allison's eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint as she responded, "Well, Max Dennison, Salem may surprise you. It's not all history and museums. There are some pretty amazing stories that even the locals don't know." Max couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at her cryptic words. He wasn't sure what to make of this girl, who seemed to be offering him a glimpse of Salem's hidden secrets. "Like what?" he challenged, curiosity piqued. Allison's smile widened, and she began to share tales of Salem's less conventional history, stories of magic, witches, and legends that existed far beyond the tourist brochures. Her words drew Max in, and he couldn't deny the flicker of interest that ignited within him. As their conversation continued, an idea began to take shape in Max's mind. He suggested they visit the Sanderson sisters' cottage, now a museum, as a way to get a closer look at Salem's enchanting past. The mention of the Sanderson sisters elicited a mysterious smile from Allison, one that hinted at untold secrets waiting to be unraveled. The die was cast, and Max's decision to explore the Sanderson sisters' cottage marked the beginning of an adventure neither he nor his new friends would ever forget. Little did they know that this seemingly innocent excursion would set into motion a chain of events that would resurrect legends and confront them with the darkest of witchcraft, as the shadows of Salem's history threatened to come to life. And so, their fates intertwined. Max, Allison, and Dani would soon discover that the legends of Salem were not as dormant as they seemed, and the past had a peculiar way of catching up with the present. Salem was about to reveal its deepest, most chilling secrets. Chapter 2: The Black Flame Candle. The Sanderson sisters' cottage stood atop a windswept hill, shrouded in an eerie mist that seemed to be the very breath of the past itself. It was a place that had become an obscure landmark, now relegated to the realm of tourist fascination. With its leaning, gnarled trees and the unsettling aura that enveloped it, the cottage was a stark reminder of Salem's darkest days. Max, Allison, and Dani approached the cottage with a mix of curiosity and trepidation. The old structure creaked as they climbed the worn wooden steps to the entrance. The wooden door bore the emblem of a black candle, the eerie symbol of the notorious Black Flame Candle, the very artifact that had ignited the legend of the Sanderson sisters. As they entered the cottage, the air grew heavy with the scent of history, the scent of witchcraft that still lingered. Dust-covered spell books lined the shelves, and faded tapestries depicting arcane rituals adorned the walls. Max couldn't help but scoff, dismissing the displays as mere props for the countless tourists who had ventured inside. Allison, however, seemed drawn to the artifacts, her fingers tracing the pages of ancient tomes, as if absorbing their secrets. She was a believer, someone who saw history not as mere tales but as the remnants of power and magic that still flowed through the town. Danny, always eager to explore, rummaged through the displays with a child's wonder. She was undeniably drawn to the spellbook at the center of the room, covered in cryptic symbols and ominous illustrations. It was the very book that held the incantation to summon the Sanderson sisters, the key to a tale she considered pure legend. Max, growing increasingly impatient, couldn't resist the urge to poke fun at the myths and legends that seemed to enshroud Salem. He turned to Allison and said, "I can't believe you're taking all this seriously. Witches and spells, it's just a bunch of hocus pocus." Allison, not one to be deterred, regarded Max with a bemused expression. "Sometimes, Max, legends are rooted in truth. What if there's more to the story than meets the eye?" Max let out an exasperated sigh but was soon interrupted by Danny, who had inadvertently discovered the black flame candle. It sat in a place of honor on a gnarled wooden table, its black wax still gleaming as if it had been cast just yesterday. Danny's eyes widened, and she beckoned her brother and friend to join her. "Look what I found." Max, his skepticism undeterred, reluctantly approached the table. "Great, another prop." He reached for the candle and paused as his hand made contact with the cold, eerie wax. The room seemed to grow still, the air thickening with an unexplainable tension. For a moment, he hesitated, but the skeptical teenager inside him couldn't resist the opportunity to prove his point. With a slight smirk, Max seized the candle, took out a lighter from his pocket, and struck it. A tiny flame danced to life, hovering over the candlewick, illuminating the room in a dim, sinister glow. Unbeknownst to Max, his skeptical act had triggered a chain of events beyond his wildest imagination. The very flame of the black candle held the power to breach the veil between the living and the dead, as foretold by Winifred Sanderson herself. The sisters had waited for centuries, and now, their resurrection was imminent. As the flame flickered, the room grew cold, and a sudden wind swept through the cottage, extinguishing all other candles but the ominous black flame candle. The tapestries billowed, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. A faint, otherworldly chanting echoed through the air, and the ground beneath them trembled. Allison, her face etched with a mixture of fear and realization, whispered, "Max, I think we need to leave. Now." But it was too late. The black flame candle had been lit, and its magic was already in motion. From the shadows, a whirlwind of magic erupted, twisting and spiraling, as a glowing vortex of energy manifested within the cottage. Before their eyes, the apparitions of the Sanderson sisters began to take form, each one emerging from the mists of time. Winifred, Sarah, and Mary Sanderson, the witches of legend, stood before Max, Allison, and Danny. Their presence was both wondrous and horrifying, and the room was bathed in an eerie green glow that signaled the return of the infamous Sanderson sisters. Max, finally realizing the gravity of the situation, turned to Allison with a look of sheer panic. "I think I just made a huge mistake." Chapter 3, Witches in Modern Times. The reappearance of the Sanderson sisters in the 21st century was a sight to behold, and an eerie silence filled the cottage. The three witches, dressed in their tattered and outdated garb, looked around with a mixture of awe and confusion as they attempted to make sense of the strange, new world they found themselves in. Winifred, the elder sister with her sharp features and stern demeanor, was the first to speak. "By the dark powers, sisters, it seems the spell has worked." Sarah, her golden hair cascading like a flowing river and her sultry voice still capable of enchanting, added with a bewildered look, "But Winifred, where are we? The world has changed. Everything is different." Mary, the more docile of the trio, simply gazed around, taking in the curious surroundings with her clouded eyes. She muttered, "I smell children, and candy." The cottage, once cloaked in shadow and eerie mystique, now lay within the heart of Salem's modern town. Cars rumbled down the streets outside, people passed by chatting on cell phones, and the sisters found themselves bewildered by the bewildering array of odd contraptions and strange clothing worn by the townsfolk. As Winifred paced back and forth, her sharp eyes caught sight of Max, Allison, and Danny, who had retreated to the far end of the room, their faces a mixture of terror and disbelief. "Children," she hissed with a gleam of wicked intent. "It seems the young are just as foolish in this age as they were in our time." Allison, her eyes locked on the resurrected witches, turned to Max with urgency. "We need to get out of here, Max. This is bad. Really bad." Max nodded, his skepticism gone in the face of the supernatural reality before him. But before they could make a move, Sarah, her enchanting voice like a siren's song, called out to them, "You, boy. What year is this?" Max gulped, his voice shaky as he replied, "It's 2023. Sarah exchanged puzzled glances with her sisters, struggling to grasp the centuries that had passed. 300 years we've been asleep, and yet our quest remains the same. We need the life force of children to make us young again." Winifred, her determination unwavering, declared, "Sisters, we must find children and complete the ritual before the night is over, or we shall be dust once more." Mary, ever the simpler of the three, asked, "What's a cell phone, and why is everyone talking to thin air?" While the sisters were adjusting to their temporal displacement, Max, Allison, and Danny realized they were in deep trouble. The legends they had once regarded as stories were living and breathing in front of them. Their actions had set in motion a nightmare from which they couldn't escape. The witches, however, were equally baffled by the state of modern Salem. Cars, streetlights, and the peculiar fashion of the townsfolk baffled them. But the prospect of regaining their youth and power drove them forward. With a cackling laughter that sent shivers down the spines of those present, Winifred commanded, "Come, sisters, we shall find these children and begin the harvest." Salem may have changed, but the hunt remains the same. As the Sanderson sisters left the cottage, their determination to adapt to the modern world blended with their unquenchable thirst for the life force of the town's children. Salem, now plunged into an unexpected supernatural nightmare, faced a Halloween like no other, as the sinister sisters embarked on a hunt for the souls of the unsuspecting. Max, Allison, and Danny realized that they were the only ones who could stop the witches, and they had no time to lose. The fates of Salem's children rested on their shoulders, as the Sanderson sisters took their first steps into a strange and baffling modern world. Chapter 4: The Unbelievable Tale. As the Sanderson sisters ventured out into modern-day Salem, the weight of the situation began to sink in for Max, Danny, and Allison. What they had dismissed as myths and legends had come to life before their very eyes, and the witches were determined to make good on their sinister quest for eternal youth by stealing the life force of children. With trembling voices, Max turned to Allison and Danny. "This is insane. We have to stop them before they find any children." Allison nodded in agreement, but the shock of the situation was evident in her eyes. "But how? What can we do against witches who are hundreds of years old?" Just as despair threatened to engulf them, an unexpected presence emerged from the shadows. A low, almost mournful voice spoke, "The answer to that, my dear friends, is with the knowledge of history." Max, Allison, and Danny spun around to find the source of the voice. To their astonishment, they were met with the sight of a sleek black cat with piercing, human-like eyes that held the weight of centuries in their gaze. It was Thackeray Binks, the immortal feline, whose soul had been cursed by the Sanderson sisters in 1693. Max was the first to speak, his voice tinged with disbelief. You can talk." Thackeray nodded solemnly. I can, thanks to the curse they placed upon me. I have been a silent witness to their malevolence for 3 centuries. Danny, her eyes shimmering with sympathy, approached the cat and whispered, "Thackeray, I'm so sorry for what they did to you." Thackeray regarded her with a grateful nod. "Thank you, child. But now is not the time for apologies. We must stop the Sanderson sisters. They're as wicked as the legends say, and they will stop at nothing to regain their youth." Allison, her natural curiosity guiding her, asked, "How do we stop them, Thackeray? What can we do?" Thackeray's eyes shifted from one face to the other, assessing the resolve in each set of eyes. He began to recount his tale, an unbelievable story that carried the weight of 3 centuries of longing and regret. "I was once like you, a brother trying to protect his little sister, Emily. When the Sanderson sisters kidnapped her to steal her life force, I tried to save her, but their magic was too powerful. They cursed me to live forever as this cat, unable to die until the witches were defeated." The 3 teens listened in rapt attention as Thackeray revealed that, for generations, he had searched for a way to thwart the Sanderson sisters. "My hope," he said, "was that someday, someone would light the black flame candle, and together, we could put an end to their evil once and for all." Max, now emboldened by their newfound ally, asked, "So, Thackeray, do you know how to defeat them?" Thackeray nodded, "I've spent centuries studying their spells and incantations. To vanquish them, we need to find their spellbook and recreate the curse that trapped their souls." Allison's eyes sparkled with determination. "Then let's do it. We can't let them harm the children of Salem." Thackeray, the symbol of a 3-century-old vendetta, led Max, Danny, and Allison on a mission to locate the Sanderson sisters' spellbook, hidden deep within the dark and mystical corners of Salem. With the knowledge of history and the resolve of youth, the unlikely team embarked on a quest to undo the curse that had plagued Thackeray for centuries and prevent the witches from stealing the souls of Salem's innocent children. The balance of power had shifted, and the fate of Salem was now in the hands of 4 unlikely heroes, ready to confront the dark forces that sought to spread chaos and evil on this most fateful Halloween night. Chapter 5: The Witch's Brew. Guided by Thackeray Binks, Max, Allison, and Danny delved deeper into the dark heart of Salem in search of the Sanderson sisters' spellbook. The town, once a place of charming history and tourist attractions, had transformed into a labyrinth of enchantment, danger, and malevolence. Thackeray led them to a hidden, long-forgotten library where old records and books of magic were stored. It was a place unvisited by most, and its dust-covered shelves held secrets, but also the eerie echo of the past. As they entered, they were met with an unsettling sight: books with pages that seemed to whisper and relics that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. "Thackeray, are you sure the spellbook is here?" Max asked, his eyes scanning the dimly lit room, trying to discern the secrets hidden in the tomes. Thackeray nodded. It's in this room, somewhere." The Sanderson sisters would have hidden it away carefully, as their most prized possession. Allison, her knowledge of history and the supernatural growing by the minute, approached a section of the library where the oldest and most obscure books were kept. She whispered to Max and Danny, "I think the spellbook may be amongst these books. Let's start searching." They began to comb through the dusty volumes, each one containing ancient texts and forbidden incantations. Max, his skepticism long gone, took a heavy tome from the shelf and thumbed through its pages, revealing a sinister array of spells and hexes. As Danny leafed through another book, her eyes widened as she found a page containing an illustration that sent chills down her spine. "Look at this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's the black flame candle, just like the one we saw in the Sanderson cottage. Allison, her intuition guiding her, picked up another book and turned its pages with care. "This book," she said, her voice filled with realization, "it holds the key to the Sanderson sisters' plans. It's their recipe for the witch's brew." Thackeray, recognizing the importance of the discovery, approached Allison and peered at the book. "The witch's brew is their most sinister creation. It's a potion that allows them to steal the life force of children. But we must find the spellbook to learn how to reverse the curse." Max, his heart pounding with the weight of the situation, asked, "What do we need to do, Thackeray?" Thackeray replied, "We need to find the recipe for the witch's brew, as well as the spell to create it. It's the catalyst for their evil plan. Once we have that, we can use it against them." Allison nodded, her resolve unwavering. "We need to stop the witches before sunrise. That's when their curse will be complete, and they'll become invincible." Danny, the youngest among them but also the most fearless, held the book with the witch's brew recipe in her hands. "We have the recipe, but we need the spellbook for the counterspell." Max scanned the room, his mind racing. "We'll split up. Allison and I will continue searching for the spellbook. Danny, you stay here with Thackeray and study the witch's brew recipe. If you find anything, let us know." As the group divided, they were now armed with the knowledge of the witch's sinister plan and the understanding of the urgency. They knew that time was running out, and the fate of Salem's children hung in the balance. Max and Allison's footsteps echoed through the library as they scoured the shelves for the elusive spellbook. The room seemed to grow darker as they delved deeper into the occult. Every whisper, every rustle of pages, seemed to reverberate with an eerie resonance. They knew that the Sanderson sisters were out there, and the darkness of the night was their canvas for malevolence. The importance of their mission weighed heavily on their hearts, and the knowledge that the witch's power would be at its zenith by sunrise was a relentless reminder of the race against time. Salem's history was alive and intertwined with the present, and the only way to save the town's children was to unearth the counterspell and confront the witches before the dawn's first light. Chapter 6: A Race Against Time. Max and Allison continued their search for the Sanderson sisters' spellbook, unaware that the clock was ticking relentlessly toward sunrise, when the witches would be at the zenith of their power. The library's eerie aura seemed to intensify with each passing minute, its ancient secrets both fascinating and foreboding. As they combed through the tomes and scrolls, a feeling of frustration gnawed at them. Max whispered to Allison, "We're running out of time. If we don't find that spellbook soon, it's all over." Allison nodded, her brow furrowed with determination. "We can't let the Sanderson sisters succeed. The fate of Salem's children depends on us." Back in the hidden library, Danny and Thackeray were engrossed in deciphering the recipe for the witch's brew. The young girl, her intellect and bravery beyond her years, had taken to the task with unyielding focus. Thackeray watched her with a mixture of gratitude and pride. "You're doing well, Danny. Keep studying that recipe. We must have every detail." Danny nodded, her eyes scanning the pages with diligence. "I'm trying, Thackeray, but this is so complex. We need to find the spellbook for the counterspell, or all of this will be in vain." Thackeray's eyes held a sense of urgency. "Indeed, Danny. We need that spellbook, and we need it soon. The witches are cunning, and they'll be relentless in their pursuit." Outside, the streets of Salem remained oblivious to the supernatural turmoil within the hidden library. It was as if the town had no inkling of the ancient evil that had awakened in its midst, or the race against time that unfolded. The Sanderson sisters, now armed with the knowledge of modern technology, had managed to secure an old van, and they roamed the streets in their search for children. Winifred, who had assumed the role of the cunning leader, issued orders as they traveled. "We shall find children and gather their life force. Once we complete the witch's brew, we shall be young and powerful beyond imagination." Sarah, the enchanting sister, added with a sly smile, "The children will be ours, Winifred. This world has changed, but our magic is as potent as ever." Mary, the seemingly meek sister, chimed in, "And the smell of candy is in the air. How delightful." The children, Max and Allison, faced a monumental task. Time was slipping away, and the witch's power was growing with each passing moment. Their search for the spellbook felt like a never-ending quest, a race against both time and the cunning Sanderson sisters. The tension mounted as Max and Allison continued to explore the library's shelves. Just when their hopes seemed to dwindle, a glimmer of hope appeared. Hidden behind a false panel, they discovered the ancient and tattered spellbook of the Sanderson sisters, the key to defeating them. As they held the spellbook in their hands, its pages filled with cryptic incantations and illustrations, the weight of their mission bore down on them. They had found the means to thwart the witches, but the challenge of executing the counterspell was a daunting one. Back in the hidden library, Danny and Thackeray had finally deciphered the witch's brew recipe, their efforts fueled by the knowledge that their friends were racing against time. But as Danny looked at the recipe, her face paled with realization. "Thackeray, we need a very rare ingredient for the witch's brew, an ingredient that I'm not sure we can find in time." Thackeray, ever the survivor and now the reluctant leader, asked with determination, "What is it, Danny? What do we need?" Danny, her voice filled with urgency, replied, "We need the hair of a black cat, the rarest of ingredients. It's the only thing that can counter the spell in time. But it's almost impossible to find." Thackeray's eyes met hers, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what had to be done. "We have no choice, Danny. We'll find a way to get my hair, and we'll save Salem's children." The stage was set, and the race against time had reached its most critical point. Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray now had the spellbook in their possession, the key to stopping the Sanderson sisters. But the witches were out in the town, hunting for children, with their power growing as the night wore on. The children were determined to outsmart the witches and thwart their sinister plan, but the final battle was drawing near, and Salem's fate hung in the balance. Chapter 7: Raising the Dead. The night in Salem had reached its darkest hour, and the Sanderson sisters were determined to see their sinister plan through to its chilling conclusion. Armed with the spellbook, Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray had a glimmer of hope, but the clock continued to tick inexorably towards dawn, when the witches would become unstoppable. Outside, the witches, having tasted the power of modern technology, had concocted a sinister plan of their own. Winifred, Sarah, and Mary Sanderson ventured into the oldest part of Salem's cemetery, armed with their malevolent intent and an enchanting, eerie magic. The graves of settlers from centuries past stood as witnesses to their dark conjuring. With an incantation that resonated with the echoes of time, the sisters raised the spirits of long-deceased settlers, binding them with dark magic to serve their nefarious purpose. The dead emerged from their graves as lifeless shells, their eyes empty and souls captive to the Sanderson sisters' malevolence. Back in the library, Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray pored over the spellbook, desperate to find the counterspell that would end the witches' reign of terror. As they read, they discovered that the witch's brew not only stole the life force of children but could also raise the dead. The Sanderson sisters intended to use the enchanted settlers as their army, and the realization sent a shiver down their spines. Danny, her voice filled with fear, whispered, "We need to find the counterspell and stop the witches from raising the dead. If they succeed, we won't stand a chance." Thackeray, the eternal victim of the Sanderson sisters, knew the stakes were higher than ever. "We must act quickly. We have the spellbook, but we need to find the right incantation to counter their dark magic." In the cemetery, the resurrected settlers, now mere puppets in the hands of the Sanderson sisters, were led by the witches to hunt down the children who threatened their sinister plans. With hollow eyes and soulless expressions, they moved with eerie swiftness, a macabre army under the command of the three witches. The confrontation loomed as Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray ventured outside to confront the supernatural army and the looming threat of sunrise. The clock was ticking, and the fate of Salem hung in the balance. As the children made their way to the cemetery, the atmosphere grew tenser, and the oppressive darkness weighed heavily on their shoulders. They knew that the showdown with the Sanderson sisters and their undead settlers was inevitable. The eerie glow of the moon cast long shadows among the gravestones, and the echoes of the past whispered through the night. The cemetery became the battleground for a clash between the forces of good and the malevolent powers of the Sanderson sisters. The fate of Salem's children rested on the shoulders of Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray. They were armed with the knowledge of the spellbook and the determination to thwart the witches, but the witches were equally determined to complete their curse and claim their sinister victory. The children's hearts pounded as they ventured deeper into the cemetery, knowing that the final confrontation was imminent. The fate of Salem's future hung in the balance, as the living and the dead converged in a thrilling showdown that would decide the destiny of the town. Chapter 8: The Battle for Salem. In the heart of the Salem cemetery, the final confrontation between good and evil unfolded as the sun's first light crept above the horizon. The fate of Salem and its children teetered on a precipice, and the eerie silence of the early morning was shattered by the gathering storm of magic and malice. Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray stood resolute, clutching the spellbook that held the key to the counterspell. The resurrected settlers, ensnared by the Sanderson sisters' dark magic, encircled them with hollow eyes and lifeless expressions. The witches, in all their malevolent glory, stood at the center of the macabre army. Winifred, the eldest sister with her commanding presence, raised her voice, her words echoing with sinister intent. "The time is upon us, sisters. Once we have the life force of these children, nothing will stop us." Sarah, her enchanting beauty concealing her deadly intent, added, "The sunrise is our moment of triumph. We will become more powerful than ever before." Mary, the seemingly meek sister, chimed in with an ominous chant that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. But just as the Sanderson sisters were about to commence their dark ritual, a haunting, ethereal presence emerged from the shadows. The spirit of Emily Binks, whose life force had been stolen by the witches 3 centuries ago, appeared, her luminous form glowing with a determination as old as time. Emily's spirit, in a voice that resonated with purity and vengeance, declared, "You will not harm them, Winifred. I will not let you take any more innocent lives." Max, his heart heavy with the weight of Salem's history, realized the significance of Emily's presence. "Emily, we have the counterspell. We can stop them." Allison, her voice filled with resolve, added, "Thackeray and Danny have deciphered the spellbook. We know how to break their curse." Thackeray, whose centuries-old curse had brought them to this moment, joined in. "Sisters, you have nothing but your wickedness. Your curse ends tonight." With the knowledge of the counterspell in their possession, Max, Allison, Danny, and Thackeray began to recite the incantation, their voices resonating with a power born of hope and desperation. The spellbook's pages seemed to come alive as the counterspell unfolded, pushing back the darkness that the Sanderson sisters had cast upon Salem. But the witches, now fully aware of the threat, chanted their own spells, their magic clashing with the children's. The cemetery became a battleground of power, as the forces of good and evil collided with a deafening roar. As the battle raged on, Emily's spirit joined the children's side, her ethereal presence aiding in the final push to break the witch's curse. The sky began to lighten with the approaching sunrise, and the witch's desperation grew. Chapter 9: Vanquishing the Witches. The first light of dawn began to streak across the Salem cemetery, painting the horizon with hues of pink and gold. As the children, Thackeray, and Emily's spirit stood amidst the graves, they felt the chilling presence of the Sanderson sisters weakening, their malevolent magic faltering in the face of the approaching sunrise. The Sanderson sisters, their faces contorted in agony and despair, realized that their dark quest for immortality had come to an end. With a chilling wail that echoed through the cemetery, they began to crumble into dust, their once powerful forms disintegrating with each passing second. Winifred, the elder sister whose commanding presence had struck fear into the hearts of many, was the first to feel the inexorable pull of the dawn's light. She reached out with gnarled hands, her once cunning mind now consumed by the terror of defeat. "No, no. I won't let this happen. I won't." Sarah, the enchanting sister whose sultry voice had once entranced all who heard it, clung to the last shreds of her magic. But the first rays of sunlight touched her, and her beauty crumbled like brittle parchment. "It's not fair. We had it all." Mary, the seemingly meek sister whose simple desires had hidden her dark heart, trembled as the light of day reached her. "Candy. I wanted candy." With each passing moment, the Sanderson sisters' forms disintegrated, their wickedness undone by the power of the sunrise and the counterspell. The air was filled with a chorus of their agonized cries, and Salem's dark history was reduced to mere dust. Max, Allison, Danny, Thackeray, and Emily's spirit watched in solemn silence as the Sanderson sisters were vanquished once and for all. The witches who had haunted Salem for centuries were no more, their malevolence reduced to a memory and a legend. As the last traces of the Sanderson sisters turned to dust, the cemetery was filled with the eerie quiet of mourning. The children and their allies knew that Salem was finally free from the darkness that had haunted it for so long. With a sense of closure and triumph, they left the cemetery behind, the legends of Salem forever changed. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting its golden light over the town, and the children knew that their extraordinary Halloween night had come to an end. The town of Salem, once a place of dark history and legends, now stood in the glow of a new day. The curse of the Sanderson sisters had been broken, their malevolence vanquished, and the town's future was free from their shadow. As the children made their way home, they carried with them the knowledge that they had confronted the past and emerged victorious. Salem's history was forever changed, a story of triumph and hope instead of darkness and fear. The memory of that fateful Halloween night would live on in their hearts, a testament to the power of courage, friendship, and the determination to stand up to the forces of evil. Salem, with its legends and history, had been transformed, and the sun's light marked the beginning of a new chapter for the town and its children. Chapter 10, A Bittersweet Farewell. With the Sanderson sisters vanquished and Salem's curse broken, a newfound sense of peace settled over the town. The morning sun bathed Salem in warm light, dispelling the shadows of its dark history. Halloween, once a night of fear and apprehension, was now embraced with joy and celebration. Max, Allison, and Danny returned to their homes, their hearts filled with a profound sense of accomplishment. They had faced legends and malevolence, and they had emerged victorious. The Sanderson sisters were no more, and the weight of their curse had been lifted from Salem. Thackeray Binks, the immortal black cat, approached the children, his once cursed soul now free from its centuries-long torment. With a somber yet grateful gaze, he said, "Thank you, all of you. I can finally find peace knowing that the Sanderson sisters are gone." Danny, her eyes shimmering with sympathy, reached down to stroke Thackeray's fur. "Thackeray, you're a hero. We're so sorry for what happened to you, but we're grateful for your help." Max, his voice filled with respect, added, "You led us through this, Thackeray. You're part of our story now." Thackeray nodded, his feline form slowly beginning to fade as he found his release. "Remember, children, to cherish every moment and never underestimate the power of bravery and friendship." As Thackeray's spirit dissolved into the morning light, the children knew that he had finally found the peace he had longed for. The legend of Thackeray Binks, once a tale of sorrow and curse, was now a story of redemption and heroism. But there was one more spirit to bid farewell. Emily Binks's luminous presence appeared before the children, her form radiant with gratitude. "You've saved my brother and Salem, and you've given me peace." "Danny," her eyes filled with emotion, said, "Emily, you and Thackeray can finally be together now." Allison, her heart heavy with the bittersweet nature of their farewell, added, "You'll always be a part of our Halloween memories." Max, with a fond smile, said, "Thank you, Emily, for helping us save Salem." With a final, radiant smile, Emily's spirit faded into the morning light, her eternal bond with her brother finally realized. Thackeray and Emily Binks, once cursed and separated, were reunited in the afterlife, free from the Sanderson sisters' malevolence. Salem, once plagued by a dark history, now celebrated Halloween with a sense of joy and liberation. The curse had been broken, the town's children were safe, and the legends of the Sanderson sisters were transformed into tales of bravery and triumph. As the children prepared to enjoy a Halloween free from fear, they knew that their extraordinary adventure had come to an end. Salem had been saved, and the memories of their courageous night would forever remind them of the power of friendship and the ability to confront the forces of evil. With their hearts full of gratitude and a renewed sense of wonder, Max, Allison, and Danny looked out at the morning sun, embracing the day with the knowledge that they had become a part of Salem's history, a story of hope and redemption in the face of darkness. Salem, its legends forever changed, was a town at peace, and Halloween was once again a time of celebration, joy, and unity. The children had not only saved Salem but had also written a new chapter in the town's history, a chapter filled with courage, friendship, and the enduring spirit of Halloween. Epilogue: Salem's return to normal. In the wake of the Sanderson sisters' defeat, Salem gradually returned to its usual quiet, non-magical state. The morning sun bathed the town in a warm, golden light, dispelling the last traces of the supernatural darkness that had plagued it for centuries. The memory of the Sanderson sisters, once a palpable presence in Salem, now began to fade into legend. The children of the town, who had once whispered about the witches with a mixture of fear and fascination, now spoke of them as characters in a fantastical tale. Halloween, a night that had once carried an air of apprehension, was now a joyous occasion filled with laughter, costumes, and the eager anticipation of trick-or-treating. The children of Salem could finally embrace the spirit of the holiday without fear of witches or curses. Max, Danny, and Allison, having experienced an extraordinary adventure that transcended their wildest imagination, had their own unforgettable tale to tell. Their Halloween night had transformed from an ordinary holiday into an epic journey of courage, friendship, and the confrontation of legends. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Salem's history continued to evolve. The town's legends were rewritten, and the stories of the Sanderson sisters became a testament to the enduring spirit of Salem and the resilience of its children. Max, now an older brother and protector, found himself looking after Danny and sharing their incredible adventure with friends and family. He spoke of the witches, the immortal black cat, the spellbook, and the triumphant battle in the cemetery with a mixture of awe and nostalgia. Allison, with her knowledge of history in the supernatural, used her experience to guide others. She became a guardian of Salem's tales, sharing the story of the Sanderson sisters with a sense of wonder and the belief that courage could conquer even the darkest of legends. Danny, the youngest of the trio, grew up with the memory of that extraordinary Halloween night as a source of inspiration. She never forgot the lessons of bravery and friendship, and she carried them with her into adulthood, embracing the magic of the world around her. Salem, with its transformed legends and newfound sense of peace, was a town forever changed by the events of that fateful Halloween night. The memory of the Sanderson sisters, once a curse, was now a testament to the enduring spirit of courage and the power of unity. As the seasons changed and the years passed, the town of Salem remained a place where Halloween was celebrated with a sense of joy and camaraderie. The darkness of legend had been banished, and in its place, a story of hope and redemption had taken root. Salem had returned to its quiet, non-magical state, but its history had been rewritten, its legends transformed, and its children forever marked by the epic tale of the Sanderson sisters' defeat. It was a town that would forever cherish the memories of that unforgettable Halloween night, a night when courage and friendship had triumphed over the forces of darkness. Hello, fellow fiction fans. I'm thrilled you're enjoying Muted Gamer Fiction. Your support means the world to me. If you're loving our stories, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement fuels our storytelling. I'd love to hear from you. Share fanfic ideas or just say hi in the comments. Let's build this community together. Thanks for being part of Muted Gamer Fiction. Keep listening, and your support keeps the stories coming. Can't wait to see your ideas. Happy listening, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next chapter.